Hello, hello. So my name is John Linden. I'm the CEO of Mythical Games. And really, I'm going to do a very quick talk. I'm going to go through a bunch of things we're seeing right now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with us or Mythical. We come from the game industry. I used to make a game called Call of Duty for many years. Worked on a lot of mobile titles, and we've been in Web3 now since 2018, so we've been here for a while. And what I want to kind of share a little bit is what we're seeing, right? What we're seeing, what we're seeing of where this heads to very quickly. And I'm going to jump right into it. So kind of powering the next generation of gaming. We're missing some backgrounds here, but we'll see how this works. So first of all, I think, yeah, this is all missing the slides here. All right, I'm just going to wing it here. So I want to get rid of some of the gaming mantras. I think it's time for us to retire the industry. Some of the things like bridging the gap, right? We're bridging the gap. The gap's being bridged, right? Or onboarding the next billion users, right? That's happening. We are working through that now. We now have games. There's multiple studios now that are in the millions of players. And this year, we're going to see games in the tens of millions of players. So we're making that happen. These things are happening right now with real gamers. So I think for me, it's kind of like, okay, now that we're starting to build these communities, that some of them are million plus. You know, one of our games, NFL, now has 6.5 million players have been through that game. So we're now looking at what comes next, right? So I thought I'd start off with sharing a couple things. There's two of the games we're working on. One, any Pudgy fans? I don't know if there's any Pudgy Penguins fans. There we go. So we're excited about this game. We partnered up with Luca and team a while back now, and we've been working on a new game. But what we're excited about is the Pudgy community is amazing. The Pudgy IP is amazing. But what we can do with this brand. Oh, man. Is every slide missing? We're missing the text on every slide. Okay. Anyway, so with this is the first time we've ever shown some of the shots from Pudgy itself. So this is a game that's coming out in several months here. And what we're really pumped about is the party genre and what we're building with them and how we're taking that IP and really taking that to this new level. So there is an incumbent in the space in mobile called Stumble Guys. It's been around for about 6 or 7 years now. It has now 400 million players on mobile. And it's done a couple things really well. First and foremost, tournaments. They threw a lot of tournaments that were generally thrown via YouTube. They were all manually run. People ran spreadsheets, and they paid out maybe by PayPal or something like that. And I think we can do better, right? I think what we can do now and where games are now heading, we can take this to a whole new level. So, unfortunately, like I said, you're not going to see the text on some of these slides. And I'll walk through some of the concepts of where we think this goes and where this next generation of gaming really becomes powerful with these concepts of Web3. So the second game we're working on right now is a game called FIFA. So FIFA Rivals, we're also very excited about. Again, all the text is missing on these slides. So this first time we've shown a shot. This is kind of a little bit of the game. I can't show too much more. Unfortunately, FIFA won't let me do that yet. But again, what we're excited about in a game like this and a game like FIFA is there is no FIFA game anymore. There was a game with EA for many years called EA FIFA, EA Sports FIFA. And that game on mobile had 500 million players a year, just on mobile alone. So 500 million people would play these games. And again, same thing. The challenge with these games is they're hitting this major global audience, but it wasn't super engaging. People played the game, but they didn't really interact with the economies, right? So they weren't able to really convert a lot of people, maybe in South America or Southeast Asia. They were very active players of the game, but they weren't very big participants in the economy. And we're excited on where this can go. We're kind of working on this new kind of over-the-top arcade-style game, but really built around the principles of Web3. And same thing here, the path is happening. The growth path is happening. So for us, we're really thinking about how do we harness this, right? Now that we start pulling all these people, maybe for the first time, into Web3, how do we take them through an experience that they can't do without? An experience that if you took it away from them, they're going to be upset, right? So one of the things we've seen work very well is this concept called quick trade. And I encourage anybody that's even thinking about anything with NFTs, this is a really powerful and we found work for gamers. So one thing that's great is that if you're trying to maintain and you're trying to go after a mainstream gamer, one of the challenges still is that if you have an asset, an NFT asset, maybe it's going for $300 or $400. Maybe not these Pudgy prices or Bored Ape prices, but even something that's going for $100, $200, $300, you're still pretty unlikely to get to the average consumer to throw that on a credit card or maybe even having a crypto account in the first place. So one of the things we've seen that's had a huge effect on our games, and I think will have an effect on every game in the future, is the concept of trading. So what we do here is we allow you now to, instead of having to purchase an NFT for this $90 here on the left, I can now see all my other NFTs on that I have access to. And I can now start selecting them, and through a marketplace tech, you can now start seeing real-time pricing. So maybe I select the 3 on the right, and it totals up, $90, $90. And now basically from a consumer perspective, I can hit trade and I received the card I wanted and I got rid of the 3 I didn't want. So from a consumer perspective, it felt like a peer-to-peer trading. From a Web3 perspective, and what makes it super powerful is we got paid 4 times, right? There was basically, we real-time bought that item from one seller and we real-time sold those 3 on the left to 3 different buyers. So the game developer, the game project, the brand got monetized a non-paying transaction. These are real changes that are happening now. And what happened with our game with NFL, the first year, we just ended with the Super Bowl last week, or this few days ago. We just kind of ended season 2. And our first year, we had 20% of our revenue came from trading fees. 80% came from what we consider traditional gaming revenue. This last year, 65% of it now is coming from secondary trading fees. So over half of the revenue is having a real effect on what these games can be. And for us, what we also see is that half of our business now is through quick trades. So since we added this functionality, literally half of our revenue, half of the marketplace volume comes from this concept of quick trades. It's been a very huge pickup because what we've done is we've taken power of Web3 and put it in a way that the average consumer can understand. On top of that, we have another marketplace called D-Market, and you can really trade as kind of our eBay market, right, of any game asset. And that system does a lot. It's doing a little about $400 million of trade volume a year. What's exciting about that now is we did a big research on it, and 20% of our volume, 20% now, is coming from AI agents, from things like Claude or ChatGPT. People are now using these services to trade on their behalf. And I think that's awesome. So what do we do with that, right? Well, I think 2 things. One, we embrace it. We're now kind of working to make sure that all of our APIs are very, very friendly so that these new AI agents can understand what they're trying to ask for. Make it very, very simple because now you have a new interface for these types of systems, and we think it's very powerful. Also, we think the big one here, and I had to use a terrible AI image for an AI slide, sorry about that. But what we think is also very exciting is AI in the games. And this is one thing I get asked a lot about is what do you think about AI in video games? AI has been in video games for a long time. But this new form of AI, right, these new LLMs and all that, I think we embrace them in a big way. Not necessarily to play the game. I have a hard time believing that most of the general population is going to want their game played out in AI because that's kind of the point of the game in the first place. But the idea of using these AI agents now as NPC characters, as new marketplace design to help them recommend what they might need. How do they kind of learn from their play patterns? What comes next? What do I need? How do I basically facilitate what that user needs next? These are going to be huge opportunities of where we go. Oh my God, these slides are killing me. I'm so sorry. So basically the other thing we're seeing right now, that's normally a video game in the middle. I'll just explain what are happening here. But I think what's interesting is once you get these games out the door, right? That's a very, very tough challenge to do. Just getting the game out the door, getting it sustainable is a big challenge. But what starts happening is your community starts fragmenting very heavily, right? You obviously have social coming through like Discord and X and other things. You have esports tournaments that are being pulled out by like a FIFA World Championship or ESL. You have marketplaces now that are kind of picking up the inventory. You have streaming through YouTube and Twitch. And it becomes very, very, very fragmented. And I think what we're seeing here is that Web3 will end up uniting this ecosystem. And I think this is probably the next biggest thing that we're going to see in this industry, right? Is how do we use Web3 to start unifying all those experiences? Having a digital identity that can move across these things is very, very powerful. So I kind of mentioned tournaments. We're going to go very big with the Pudgy team on tournaments, right? There's going to be a way to have Web3-based tournaments. Let people come in and create their own criteria. We've seen it work in Web 2 in a very fractured, kind of chaotic way. Web3 can perfect that. And I think we're going to see a huge new audience of consumers coming in that we know from the demographic, we know from usage in the past, they love this type of stuff. And I think Web3 will bring a brand new experience into that. Things like integrated chat, things like the community tournament side, things like quest systems, all unified, become really, really powerful with this new ecosystem. So I think social-fi, this concept of social-fi, is probably the next biggest thing that we will see initially with games, but I think with all communities. The Zuki community was just talking about, like having this anime concepts, right? It can really apply to all these different groups. So it's not just about playing that core game, it's the experiences around that all coming together at once. Maybe. I don't know if where's the other slides out here? Sorry. All right. The last piece I had is that I think is really fascinating as well is this concept of sustainable tokens. And I do think what's really fascinating right now is that I think gaming right now is the only tokenomics that are truly kind of ability to scale in the short term to be self-sustaining. And we're seeing already. There's we're way up there right now. We're number 2, right behind Ethereum and ahead of Solana now in terms of sales volume and transaction volume. Mutable's number 6 right now. But that basically means 2 of the top 6 chains, and this is absolutely every NFT that's trading right now, 2 of the top 6 are 100% dedicated to gaming. And why is that? Well, the main reason is because gamer fundamentals are really, really strong. And this is something to think about. A lot of people talk about normies. I've heard all these different terms for it. The normies of the world are actually pretty important, I think, to these ecosystems. And the reason, and this is actual data we're seeing from our NFL game, the part in green is what people are buying in the marketplace every day. The part in red is what they're taking out. This is a different demographic than the average crypto trader, right? They are investing in these items. They are keeping their balance. If you look at the right, that's the balance of wallets that haven't spent money yet in our NFL game. So you can see literally every single time, almost month over month. We've had 2 months. One was after the Super Bowl, and once was actually we had a huge price influx in the token value. But other than that, every single month we've seen an increase of how much people are bringing into their wallets, right? And what are they doing with that? They're actually generating more and more and more transaction volumes. So you can see kind of quarter over quarter, we're seeing a continuous growth. This is pretty different. We were fairly immune. The gaming industry is pretty immune to some of the crypto ebbs and flows, right? Because they are playing. You can kind of see the wallet count. This is, in the last couple months here, but every single day we're adding thousands of new wallets into these ecosystems, right? This is very, very important. And then finally, on a token side, and I think this is something for every game project to really think about, if you're building games traditionally, right? Traditional games like Call of Duty, all these types of things, we always looked at currency sinks and faucets, right? You can't have too much currency enter a game. You can't have too much currency leave a game, or it becomes unbalanced. Well, this is the only, even a bigger method when you have real value tied to those tokens. So what we're seeing already, though, is because of these other pieces, right? Because consumers are buying tokens and not selling them because they're buying items in the market, generating transaction fees. Those transaction fees obviously generate gas fees. Gas fees burns those tokens. So what you end up with in these type of economies is a very, very, very interesting deflationary supply. And in fact, on the right here, we kind of modeled out what we're seeing right now. So this is pre-PUBG coming on. This is pre-FIFA launching this summer. That we have 4 or 5 other games building on us. So this is before all those games. This is what we're seeing right today, is we see roughly about 15 million tokens. We have a billion supply on that. 15 million tokens right now are being burned, right? So 1.5% of total supply. And basically what I'm showing on the right is we want a sustainable economy, right? We want an economy that we can reward our long-term holders to let them stake and have staking rewards off of securing the network, but we want it sustainable. We don't want it to be inflationary. And you can actually see, even with a 5% staking rate, 5%, basically we're allocating 5% of total supply into a staking reward system, we still have a pretty heavily deflationary economy. So these things are working, and I think we're at a point now in the industry that we can take this to that next generation. We can take all the learnings we're seeing right now, and we can really start moving this now from millions of players into tens of millions of players, and what I bet will be 100 million players within the next year or two. So Web3 definitely has a real impact on gaming. Sorry, my slides don't necessarily reflect that, but I think right now what we see is that there are real changes happening to economies right now. The economics of games are being changed. We're seeing tremendous, tremendous effects on what this means to the game developer. We're seeing real engagement changes. We're seeing changes on how people are going to engage, and I think as we move into this new world of social-fi and things like that, it's going to be even heavier. And obviously, we see real sustainable tokenomics building up here. So we definitely believe the next generation gaming will be 100% driven by Web3. I think it's a huge opportunity for us. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.